I've got funding from the German Research Foundation for 5 years for a whole research group, so we were 7 people. At first, I didn't want to do anything digital. I thought I will hire 3 different PhD candidates, each one will have their corpus, and each one will do a print edition and the dissertation, and then everything will be good. And you know, after like 6 months, I was like, why should we separate these editions? It doesn't make any sense. We're asking the same question to all of these corpora. Why should it be different books? It's called Letters and Texts, Intellectual Berlin around 1800, and we've tried to focus on people who are really at the interface of scholarship, literature, and politics. Because it's this situation in Berlin around 1800, Napoleonic War, creation of the university, and all of these salons. So the idea was to find texts which could help grasp all of this atmosphere there was in Berlin at that time. And the idea with this edition was to have a light critical apparatus to really document, because in letters you have things strike through and the editor's correction, and you can see the different hands. So this on a very light level, and work on entities, which is more extensive, although we've had trouble identifying all women, for instance, mentioned in the letters. So the idea is we combine these entities and the genetical aspect, and we see, okay, we can identify the hands and we can see which kind of functions different hands have. So for instance, somebody who is going to strike something that is morally reprehensible is more likely to be a friend. And someone who strikes something that is more stylistically problematic is most likely going to be a writer friend, for instance. I have a student who took all the data and is trying to develop an algorithm for these censorship mechanisms with the idea, okay, once we have clustered the different ways of striking through, adding, deleting, etc., we can see if we can semi-automatically do that for the rest of the corpus without us having to do it by hand. The idea is, on the one hand, to have this edition which really shows the way texts were being written and published along the 19th century, and on the other hand, to have a room for experimentations like this censorship algorithm to say, okay, we have this mass of annotation, what could we do with it? I realized that there are many phenomena. When you only do a use case, when you only take one corpus, you are really truly convinced that this very way of striking a specific part of the text is specific for this author. And then, when you have edited 3 or 4 of them, you realize, no, actually it's not specific of one author. It's like common at the time. And it's the way, what I find most interesting is the way you can much better realize what is typical of the time and what is specific for an author. As long as you haven't encoded it, you don't really realize it's systematic. And once you've done the encoding, all of a sudden you become aware of the difference between the 2 types of phenomena.